still polishing off the last little bits of setup here. I took yesterday off after the video for the most part. Sorted out some additional counters. These are just informationals and then the numerics. But I haven't dealt with the Russian unit problem that I identified that there's a sheet over here that I can deal with. I did just look up in the BR rules. Okay, where those stacks of units are, standard in the exclusive rules for the games, it says you can place within 1 hex of that. It doesn't say any of that in the stuff I was working from. Because, well, actually I was working from this, so it does say it there. But I didn't read the setup instructions here because I had kind of just, you know, hey, things go in this hex, things go in this hex, and now I've got hexes that are overstacked. So I have to fix that. At the same time, I have to put number counters under the guys who are white, and then I have to address, if I want to, looking at the Soviet units and making sure they're right by that sheet. I'm actually not so sure that I want to do that at all, to be honest. Like, that sheet is extracted from the materials that I used it from, and in combination with the counter mix that Mr. Volher has created to try to align the games together. So yeah, I probably more or less duplicated it. I may not have it exact, but I'm probably pretty damn close. All right, onward then. Shit, I just found one that I didn't. I was going to say, I think I got all the counters down. What I wanted to come in for, not to give you a report of, oh, look, I'm a good boy, I got all those fixed, and I didn't, is that one of the things that I know I don't like about this, and I don't like about most of these operational style games, is the amount of odds calculation and, you know, just factor counting, looking at all the things and trying to figure out, hey, you know, what do I need to get exactly this, that, and the other. It's one of the things that I actually, if you take a look at some of Dean Essig's games, particularly the OCS, but also the SCS stuff, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to peek at the enemy's forces. And I could play this the same exact way, but this game is more reliant on getting the odds right, and most of these operational games really are, whereas I find that in the OCS, at least I assume it's the case. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't have got a combat table under here somewhere. You know, this looks actually kind of like the OCS in the sense that it's like smooth. You don't have these big cutoffs like you do in some of the games. But I had the feeling that I have to get the exact odds and get them right and everything. I'm going to try to play this more like I would an OCS or SCS game, where I'm just going to kind of guesstimate. Now, early on, I have to get a feel for what kind of odds that I want to hit and what the strength of the units are. But to tell you the truth, I can kind of see. You know, most of the units, I've got an idea of what they're like, and it wouldn't be that unreasonable for me to like peek and just make a quick guesstimate or whatever. Based on that, but I'm not gonna work as hard on odds as I think you really have to be absolutely competitive with these kind of games. You know, I played, I don't remember if it was Third Reich or something else with a buddy of mine who was an experienced wargamer, but was it Third Reich? I don't remember. It was something similar to that, where he just sort of slammed units in with, well, I'm not going to calculate the odds, let's just see where I go. And it was horrible. You know, if you look at those old Avalon Hill or old SPI CRTs, it's nasty if you don't get the cutoffs right. You know, you're looking at a difference between a 1-to-1 and before 3-to-2 started showing up or whatever, but a 1-to-1 and a 2-to-1. And it's a significant difference. You know, a 1-to-1 is just a crapshoot if you're lucky in the game, and may actually just be horrible for you, because under reasonable circumstances, if the strength means what it should mean, and it doesn't always, you probably want 2 or 3 to 1 odds to be able to launch a successful attack. And that's just sort of a general like principle, which takes a lot of effort to kind of get through your head, but it also kind of didn't apply in those games, so it's like just weird. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm seeing more white all over the place. These guys I haven't dealt with. I'm working on it. I had thoughts that this would help. It really isn't helping me. What I'm finding is that there are units that were produced, at least in this counter mix. Again, maybe the counter mix was revised by the time I got the rules out or whatever. Like, I may have printed the counters and then printed the rules at some later date or something. But as far as this counter mix goes, it does not align with what's in here. This also only covers the Soviet, not the non-Soviet Warsaw Pact divisions, which maybe I've got, you know, another page here somewhere. No, I don't. Which is not the only place there are problems. There are problems with all of the units, and in particular with some of the Western Allied units and whatnot as well, or the NATO units. So again, I'm just going to make a best guess. The real question is, I think there's some CGF that is supposed to show up here, and I got to track that down from the instructions that I have. What's really disturbing though about it all is that, like, if you're using his counter set, the setups that are present in the original rule books, well, at least the counter set that I have, but I don't think it's changed this much. They just don't quite align everywhere, you know, and there's no sort of singular place where it explains everything, where everything goes. And some of that may be like a copyright worry, you know. Hey, I don't want to publish this game without the right. I don't want to publish the information for setup of the game without the rights to it. That kind of idea. So there may be kind of a not copying and not assimilating all the information into one place, issue in place. Anyway, I should be able to get something together. It may not be very historically accurate, but on the other hand, Volhers himself kind of says, well, you know, I just kind of fudged the strengths of all the units based on what they are in the other games, and on the concepts that are present. So there's things like, in the original game, I think there's first and second line Soviet divisions, which are basically the guards and regular forces. And then I think for the 2 newer ones, there's 3 different types of strength points, and he just kind of aligned it all to first and second line, so as to match the original set, which makes me happier. I mean, I want to use as many counters from the original that I can. I'm kind of pissed that, like, the West Germans weren't arranged properly. Anyway, I don't think I'm starting today. I don't know if I have a mental block about this game or whatever, but it's really hard for me to approach. It is just, I don't know. I don't think it's that much, I don't think it's more complex than other things that I play, right? And I don't think it's more demanding than something like OCS. But somehow I've just got this really strong, oh God, I don't want to do this. Final little tidbit of setup, I think. Have I screwed up? Probably. Okay. I bet you there's units set up over here as well. Is the Czech and some of the Soviet units set up here. These guys have the option to come on either on the Hof Gap or coming into the North German plain map. I'll probably push them in through the Hof Gap map. Hoff Gap map. Largely, actually, I think these are actually forced to be a Hoff Gap. These guys, my past wife used to love it when I, point to pieces or something and call them guys. I don't know why. It just brings a smile of sadness to my face. Turned out to be a pretty day. Every day is fucking foggy as hell until about noon. And then the fog lifts and it's pretty for a little while. At least the weather right now. It's been bitterly cold for here, which is to say, if it gets under freezing at night, it's cold. But it's been getting down around 20, which, Fahrenheit. But yeah, these guys have an option to come in on either of these two maps. I think everything else is fixed, but I do have to look, see if I have more here that has to be brought in. So I've done a little bit more. I expect to be ready to start playing before tomorrow. I don't want to play when it's dark out because the lighting's just not that good. I rely on that light there to give me some of it. I could bring yet another one of these stand lights. I have one more that I haven't assembled, and maybe run it over into that corner. And then I'd have enough light, but there's something about the big window giving light that's just so helpful comparatively. Actually better than the light anywhere else. Certainly better than the stuff up in the loft. All right, I'll check to see if these are, and I'll give you a report once I set those up. But you can see, look, there is not a lot in the way, right? Especially the North German plain map really doesn't have a hell of a lot at all. And the Warsaw Pact forces are relatively impressive in size. Of course, that is what comes on turn one here. No, I think these checks do as well. I think these are turn one reinforcements. But I'm not sure because I got all these. So these might be actually like turn three or something. I will look it up and figure it out, obviously, in time. But and yeah, I suspect there are going to be Warsaw Pact units over here as well, because there's a lot of Warsaw Pact territory on that map. It's kind of funny. The original three put you right on the border and just say, roll the Russians in, and they have to go in their formations and everything. But they no longer are constricted to their formations if they set up on the map freely, which feels kind of bogus to me. Like, this whole thing would work better, as far as I'm concerned. This map could have started, I don't know, maybe about here, right? I don't know. I'm trying to see, because like here, you don't even have the border on there. So yeah, this map could have been pushed up a little bit more. This map certainly could have been pushed up a little bit more, and that would make aligning them all a little bit easier. I don't remember. Trying to see where I have a picture of the whole setup. I was going to say, I don't remember whether the initial setup showed the maps at this positioning. I actually don't know. Oh, it would be, this is what I just looked at. I'll come back if I can find it. Here's the map they were planning on, and it would mean that Beor only ingests. This actually, I think, would be even further down by the pictures of that. But this one should be completely aligned. They didn't fudge it too much. I find it kind of funny that this is as far as it is, but the border, yeah, there's a lot of border there for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why they pushed it that far. Oh, I bet you because of the waterways here, they want it X number of standard maps. Like I said, this was originally a 10-map design. It's kind of funny looking through this old moves. Just the games that I have, I don't know if I have this one. I may have picked it up, but you know, Sicily obviously came in the magazine game. You know, we're wandering off. Operation Grenade, part of the same series, an informational thing on it. I just flipped through this. The Alamo, I picked that one up because it looked so cool. We played it on video. It wasn't that exciting. Then this. This is why another Alamo ad. Spies, I have that one. That's an interesting game. The rule book for that is kind of a mess, though. These are a different company, Gamma. I do not have them. Task Force. Okay, so this is something I finally picked up, you know, within the last decade or so, right? Have never played. And then, you know, it's also fun to look, yeah, I'm just wasting time, am I not? To look through this and see which of these, say, got actually published. This did not. I actually don't. Well, okay, so here's the problem. Anything that did get published by this date was probably a TSR publication, which I wouldn't be familiar with. I think the whole pipeline pretty much got shut down, though, unless they had something that was part of a series that they were planning on doing, or anything that was planned for the magazine, but anything in the feedback that was like, hey, do you want this? There's just no telling that might or might not have gotten done. All right, I guess I'm wasting enough of your time here. I'll look into this, babble a bit more. The terrain here is so restrictive going through this part of the border that you're really forced to like create a wedge that'll just drive through into kind of the plains here. And as soon as we get through there, it's all clear terrain, so that should be pretty easy. But here, it's a little weirder. First of all, I'm facing rivers, but also the terrain is largely more open, and I just have a lot of different options to attack it to. Now, I'm not worried about the NATO forces crossing the border and coming in at me, even if they were allowed to, which they're not. They really don't particularly want to unless there's like, you know, some kind of short-term gain there. But I guess the big question is getting across the river and how I'm going to manage that. I don't have that kind of problem anywhere else on the board. Even here, the river lines are within Czechoslovakia, so I'm safe. So here, I have to be a little bit more careful in my setup and a little bit more thoughtful. I may need engineers and whatnot to get across, or I may need to seek out weak spots like here. Now, I may still want an engineer to do this, but a weak spot like here, of course, then the terrain gets kind of icky. It's not terrible. Remember no, it's only the Hofgap map that has a weird terrain restriction on it. Oh boy. These Czech mountains are probably at least as bad as anything that's on here in terms of what the rough terrain or whatever. So I'm going to actually extend that to the rough terrain over here as well, whatever the special rule is, which I don't remember, but I just know that you don't want to fight through that shit. But yeah, this is a lot of roadways going through here. That's not too bad, I guess. But this leaves a lot of options open that I got to think about. Thing to note, this 207th mechanized here, I think it's, yeah. You can see the counters are, you know, from the original game. This can be placed on this map, or it can enter onto the Bayor map. I don't feel like I have enough force to got lots of game turn markers, one for each game. I don't know if I have them in the right games, but I don't feel like I have enough force here to really handle the Bayar map properly, so I'm going to devote that over to the initial advance here. That also prevents me from having to set it up. But I was kind of looking at, hey, what's on the North German plain? And I counted up my units, and I don't have enough divisions. There was one extra, it's this one. But that's actually on both maps. Like, both games have it assigned to it. So I think I will use it over on Bayar. The final little piece of the setup is over here. I feel like I have way insufficient forces, but I feel like I have too few for the Bayar map as well. I know what came in here on 5th Corps was massive and could just kind of, felt like it could just plow through everything. That looks like a fair amount of units I could send the East Germans in this direction into the Hofgab map. These guys, I think, do have to come in from the south, so that should be, this map is going to get a serious squeeze because, you know, forces are punching this way in close conjunction maybe with the forces here. I probably should have had the Czechs next to the Czechs just to make life easier, but I didn't. And just to make life hard, I don't think these get set up on the board. Let me make sure that they don't. I was getting a little confused because these are in the front. These are showing up on game turn 1. These are also showing up on game turn 1. I am going to guess that these maybe can push in that direction. Maybe not. I don't know. I could look very quickly, but I thought these were the ones that were confusing me, but no, these are deployable in either direction. These guys come in on turn 1, and I think the Czechs must as well, because those are all modern units, but they may be restricted to coming in over here, and that may be, and then they might have the option to come in down there as well, although I doubt that I have any rules that would say that, because those would be the Voller's additions, because this map didn't exist then when the setup instructions were built for any of this, really. The setup instructions are all coming from the individual games, except for the 5th Corps Hofgab modifications at about the time Bayar came out. All right, I think we're all set for real this time. I know, you know, I'm delaying and whatever, but I just don't want to. I have about an hour before I have to do some raid, and I really don't want to. I know this is going to take me more than an hour to play that first turn, even to play just the initial crawl, like the initial player turn or whatever, pulse, whatever you want to call it, because there aren't really player turns, but it is an I go, you go game. It's just there's more going than there would be in a normal one. It's an I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, as many times as we wish, or as many times as someone wishes to move units. So, yeah. But I think that first push is going to be really, really intensive. And maybe I could do like the initial artillery strikes and the airdrops or something like that. But man, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready. All right, since I've been kind of going through, you know, the setup stuff, there's one thing on setup that's a little random, which is the U.S. Major Training Area. I have a couple of dice here. I should have 2 colors, but first one is going to be this column. Second one is this, 4, 1st Brigade, 8th Infantry Division. All right, great. Where do I find that? Well, is it this? This is the optionals. 1st Brigade, 8th Infantry Division. It's going to be on this, in this. 8th Infantry is going to be 5th Corps, which means it's going to be on the 5th Corps map. 1st Brigade is these 4 units. This is a game turn. So 1306. I'll find them. This hex, but I don't know if this is right. It doesn't, like the helicopter's not going to be part of it. So I should have 2 more units next to there. This was the 287. So the other 2 should be 228 and 469, and the helicopter goes back wherever I was. It's going to be these 2. Okay. So those are the units, and then does the entire unit go into training or not? All units. Okay. So, what did we say it was again? We got 1 more unit to find. This is the 128 self-propelled artillery, which is going to be in this pile. I will pull it out. This is fucked up. All units except mechanized infantry battalions are placed within 2 hexes of 1238 on the Hofgap map. No problem with that. All mechanized infantry enter play as reinforcements during the initial NATO phase on the south edge of the Hofgap map, west of 0142. 0142 is going to be the border, I'm guessing. No, not quite. So they're going to be entering here, which is just weird. We said 1238 for these guys, and I don't think they're as unprepared. So the units that have a hit against them, I'm guessing are Reforger units, largely. They're forces that had to accumulate, you know, that are more spread out or whatever, and maybe don't have all their equipment ready, and had to gather together in order to be a functioning unit. That wouldn't be the case with units that are involved in the training area. So this is what we're going to have. I am going to just bring them in off the map here instead of trying to guess where they would be over on the Donau front map. That's the first thing. We're ready to play, I think. I think that's the last step. And now the Soviets get to do their initial strikes and whatnot. I have to look stuff up and figure out what what they're going to do. And this is kind of painful. This is one of the things that kept me away from, what the hell is it? Some of the bigger OCS games, which is that, and I'm thinking the Invasion of France one, which I can't remember what it was called, but honestly, any of the big ones, which is the, like, right at the beginning, you have to have a really good plan in mind. I can kind of come up with a plan, especially if I'm kind of familiar with the system and whatnot. And B, you just have to unleash a lot of shit all at once. And that's the next one, that's the one time-wise that I should be doing in terms of, like, if I want to do things chronologically. But I've decided, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to fucking do DAC that I want to do, as my next OCS game. in part because I'm guessing that DAC is going to allow me that kind of build up to the crescendo, because, you know, it's not a major invasion. I don't know where it's going to start, right? But it's probably not going to start at a point where if you fuck it up at that point, you've screwed up the entire game. But this is definitely in that kind of position where it's like, oh man, you know, if I do my attacks wrong, if I choose poorly, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna make my life really a lot harder for the Soviets, because they're the ones making the big decisions early on, than I really want it to be, right? Obviously, here's one thing. I'm allowed to do these bombing raids and whatnot at the beginning of the scenario. Well, I'm not going to be bombing, for the most part, maybe at all, any of these sort of containment forces on the border. Those, I expect I should be able to plow through without much effort. But then the question becomes, do I go for the next line of defense, or do I aim for the major reserves where things are kind of more clustered and I could get more hits in? And that's the kind of decision making that I have real trouble with. The thing that's going to be hard to guesstimate is paradrops and air mobile units going in the beginning of the game. I'm not going to have a real feel for how far my advances are going to be. Of course, if we look at, you know, how the modern day Russian army did going into Ukraine, maybe we'll see a repeat of that, where I stretch way too far, you know, because they tried to do an air mobile assault into the airport near Kiev and try to set up an airhead just like this game is trying to do. And now, you know, having seen that and you know, that I'm older in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm more willing to take a chance and do that and try to do that kind of thing. Before I was just like, oh shit, I don't want to get my units like stranded out in the middle of nowhere. I'm a very, very conservative person in a lot of ways, in terms of like being unwilling to take big risks. And you know, it's just like the idea of doing an air mobile assault or an airborne attack is just, wow, that really sounds like I'm throwing those units away. I'm putting them in, especially if it's converted air mobile units, I'm putting them in a weaker state than I'd like them to be. I'd like to just crush forward with my full power of my units. Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, this is really like, I'm panicking about the idea of trying to do these clever, bigger attacks. You know, in Third Reich, I would have a hellish time, because you kind of have to, as the Germans at least, take some risky moves to match history at all, in terms of like taking the Low Countries and Denmark and Norway and everything, all trying to seize it all really quickly in one turn and everything. Same thing with WIF and other games along it. But it first hit me in Third Reich that like, I can't just push my units up front and expect to take everything, like I did with Poland, right? Like Poland, I just overrun it. Hey, that's cool. Let's go to the next one. The next one was really hard. Honestly, I think that my discomfort with these kind of pushes and whatnot, being able to picture what's going on and come up with a valid, viable strategy using, you know, all the tools that should be available to me, I feel like it's my mental blocks, or, you know, whatever disincentivizes me from making that kind of planning and whatnot. I feel like that's what really keeps me from enjoying operational games, the 20th century operational stuff. because, I don't know, it's hard, man. It's just hard for me to reach for, whereas I have a really much easier time when I'm looking at a tactical battlefield, where there's formations and whatnot. I can come up with strategies that make sense to me. And, then it's just optimization of fire tables and stuff like that, which, should be easy, right? It really should. Which is why I don't know why I get any joy out of like OCS or Desert. Desert Fox, I feel like the Desert campaign is something different. I feel like it's got a lot less of that obnoxious shit that I can't handle as well. And this really is full of it. Studying these rules, I found something. I found something that lets me make it all easier. All right, Warsaw Pact reinforcements. Warsaw Pact reinforcements are entered according to the BOR cases 21.422.2. Order of appearance is detailed in BOR and on master unit deployment list over here. The Soviet airborne reinforcements consist of the 76th Guard Airborne Division and the 103rd Guards Airborne Division. Both divisions may be dropped at the same time or different game turns as the Warsaw Pact player decides. BOR case 22.4 details the option of dropping the 76th GABD. It probably matches what I'm just read here. This option is available to the 103rd as well. If the Warsaw Pact player decides to drop the 103rd Guard Airborne off map, then no NATO reinforcements enter either the Hofgap or 5th Corps game maps. This includes U.S. units at major training areas off the map. I'm a little disturbed by the major training areas thing because they're coming in off this map. Now let's look at this other one here, 20.2. I kind of remember this, like I make this decision, right? Because it seems clearly like the right thing to do. Throw a couple divisions off and I can knock out a fair amount of reinforcements. It's not that huge though. This is like just a couple divisions here. This may be a little bit more. So one division taking out all of that, I don't know, maybe. Let's take a look at what the BOR one looks like. And then I'm going to look in the Voller's information to see, does he have anything equivalent to that to work on North German Plain and Donau Front? And what the hell is happening with the stuff at the major training area? I mean, if it's coming on the map from here, it's coming from here. If I'm dropping off map, I'm dropping back there. What? Okay. So what was I saying? 20 point. Let's spit on my rules. That'll make sense. It's probably under here. Warsaw player has the option of airdropping the units of the 76th Guard Airborne according to the rules outlined. In this case, these units may be dropped onto the map at the start of any game turn in which the NATO player doesn't have air superiority. I don't see anything about dropping them off the map. Yeah, so I think my only option to knock out reinforcements is to knock them out, knock the U.S. reinforcement, well, the NATO reinforcements off for 5th Corps and Hof Gap. I would say the major training areas, even though it would be neutralized by the Hof Gap normally, like if I was just playing, if I didn't have the Donau Front, but the fact that this map is connected, I'm just not buying, like, that should be a threat. If I'm preventing those guys from coming on, that should be a threat there. So I'm tempted to say, and it's only 2 regiments, right? Sorry, 2 battalions, not even regiments. Yeah, the Russians use larger size units. That's where I'm getting confused there. So I don't know. It becomes a much harder call. This looks like a big stack, but those are, you know, puffy units. Like, it was a no-brainer before, but is it really? Because even though these units come on in the first couple turns, it takes a while to get down and get them into the fight. So if that airborne force is able to gain me ground fairly quickly, it may be a bad idea to do what I always did, which is to nuke the reinforcements and just prevent them from coming in. Because the frontline stuff, or you know, the second line, if you want to call this stuff frontline, but it's really not much more than the holding forces in some ways. That frontline stuff is going to be able to stop me, be able to get up to the line and stop me more quickly than this additional reinforcement. Hard call, man. Hard call. This is the 76th. This is the 103rd there, you know. One of the reasons, though, that I did throw them back there is, hey, I don't have to worry about supplying them or anything like that. I can just throw them back there. And they prevent future problems from happening, which feels incredibly valuable to me in terms of not having to try to do what I don't want to do, which would be, you know, some kind of landing to try to divert that sort of the on-map force, the real majority of the forces of NATO from being able to do something. Oh, God, it's hard. I found the other option. The Warsaw Pact chooses to allocate the 76 Guard Airborne to a airdrop across the Rhine from the Belgian frontier. In this option, the 76 Guard never appears in the game. NATO receives none of the Belgian reinforcements. This is quite favorable to the Warsaw Pact player. He's assessed a victory point penalty in this. The Belgians are the pale green, and there are actually quite a few of them. They're going to be the majority of the reinforcements here. You know, fuck. I mean, look, I'm not really all that interested in calculating victory. If this is the better option, period, the end, let's just fucking do it. And I think I'll do it on both, whatever that means. I'm trying to figure out what I have to do first, though. I know that there are things that I have to do early in the game. And as to the West German territorials, I'm either not playing with them, or if the advance is very quick, I'm going to just allow the allies, the NATO allies, to sort of pop them up without pre-plotting, which I may just do. It feels like, I don't know. It just feels like it should be something that is just expected to be present. Anything else? Beor's exclusive rules count as standard rules at this point, which means there's some things like Soviet doctrine. They always have to advance after combat. This was in the other one as well. Initial air superiority. Warsaw Pact player rolls one die to determine the extent of air superiority. The number represents the number of game turns in which the Warsaw Pact player automatically possesses air superiority. Yeah. We get 4 turns of air superiority. How am I going to mark that? And that's going to be across the entire map. And it's because there's a surprise attack. Let's use one of these. Let's put that there. And I'll just try to remember. But that means I can do my airborne drops, I can do bombing and whatnot. It also means NATO has nothing. They're just, you know, again, if I wanted to play with the Voller's optional rule, NATO would have some air defense points and whatnot. I just think that complicates the calculations way too much. Which is to say, if you have air superiority, you can count on attacking and being able to throw the points that you need in and do artillery or EW. Well, if you do EW interdiction, you're fine. But you can do some counter battery fire and whatnot and knock the enemy's capability to provide any kind of defensive support out of the way so that you know what odds table you're going to hit. Now, there is one thing that you can't probably prevent, which is helicopter intervention. So, you know, NATO's going to have some points anyway available. Helicopters are painful, but to use, like, in the sense that they take casualties and whatnot. But anyway, so that gets me the initial air superiority. The initial segment is skipped. The Warsaw player is the first player. We follow the march orders, preemptive airstrike. I'm going to be able to hit a number of hex groups specified by scenario instructions. How much is that? What am I looking up here? See, I don't... Not seeing it here. Air superiority, 12 air points per map. Is that what we're doing? I think that's what we're talking about for the preemptive strikes. Preemptive strikes, this total of 18 strikes. So I've got to upgrade that though, because I've got 2 extra maps in play. So let me think. We're looking at 6 per map. So total air power at 12 per map is 60. So I think I have 30 airstrike, 30 of these. Three-column shifts on chemicals, but where am I finding this? So I'm going to have, what did I say, 60 and 30. Air superiority. When the Warsaw Black he receives 12 air points per map, total of 36. Where's preemptive airstrike? 6 hex groups per map. Okay. All right, so I'd roll the dice once for each NATO unit in the hex group, then subtract 1, and it does that many hits. Does not require the expenditure of air points. So yeah, so I'll have 30 hex groups that I can hit. Ugh. Oh boy. Yeah. All right, so we're going to need some kind of counter for that and something. The die result after subtraction, 1 for every unit. Subtracts 1 from every unit except artillery and headquarters. It gets that many FPs added. Only artillery and headquarters can be eliminated by this. Oh boy. Well, this is going to be painful. Where did I got my dice here. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna record this, which feels like a really lame thing to be worrying about. But I'm gonna have 30 points, 30 locations that I can hit clusters of units, and I will be aiming for clusters, places like here where they're, forced to be together. And then I'm going to have 60 additional air points, which is, I do have markers for that. So I'll use those markers for the 30. Just have to dig them up. This is
eating up, you know, space on the table. Thought I did. What are these? The fuck are these? Ruh-roh. Found some counters that I don't know where they're from. Maybe I didn't set up. Gotta find where they go. All right, I gotta swap batteries. I'll be back when I figure out about those fucking counters. You know, most games, like the fact that this is a pieced together game from different systems, from, you know, a work in progress that I printed out from whatever, it really became a much, much harder task to figure out what everything was and where it all goes than you would normally be facing. One of the reasons, like, I knew it was going to be a nightmare to do. I knew it was going to be a fucking nightmare. But I printed out the damn counters and mounted them. What the hell's wrong with me? I'll show you a peek into the resolution method when I find a counter. So I found this counter. I looked through every setup list that I have. Now, there's 5 maps, but fifth chord and half gap are consolidated into one, which is helpful. And what I found after scanning first the fifth chord half gap stuff is, hey, look, I have a little marker here. This was an extra thing that I noted that I had extra. What's up with that? So I look up game turn 5 here over on the barrel map, and I find that I have that unit on the map already. So this guy goes into the bag over there. Now the other one is an entire formation, I guess the second guard's army, which will be a lot easier. No, which will be like one of these checks. But I had to make a fair amount of these across the board with all the excess units. I just found these as yet another set. And it's not as easy as you think, because the formatting of the way this is done. So like I see 30th tank. I found things that were, let's look over here. So I found, okay, so some of you are going to say, what's up? 7th Guard Tanks Division, but that's part of the 1st Guards Tank Army, right? And then 79th Guards Tank Division also caught my eye. I basically have to do it through scanning, and I was actually pretty lucky to see 7th Tank Army. Now this is the 7th Guard Tank Army, but that did not come across when you deal with these, and that's one of the issues here. This says 7TA, this also says 7TA. Okay, so nothing said guards. I was just confused. Yeah. But anyhow, this is part of what the nightmare is. I don't know if it's some weird sort of dyslexia or something, but I'm looking for the Soviet Second Guard Army now. That's what these other counters are. And I look through here, and I get to this, and I read this as 2GA instead of 20GA. And that doesn't do it. Okay, so I think I know what these are. Over here, we have 2nd Guards Army, easy enough to find. It's got a bunch of different units. That's not what we're looking at. What we may be looking at is Army troops. There are 3 there. And we try not to destroy everything. And we look for what we've got here. Whether we've got a duplicate, we shouldn't. These should all be homemade counters. 6th Guard Tank Regiment. So here's one of the things. I had some units that I could not find at all, like this NGA, which I think is like North German Army or something like that. I have, and I associated them. I think these guys are supposed to be set up over here. And this looks pretty weak. Now, none of these, well, see, this is that, so this says 80th Guards Tank 2GA. That's not part of this. So again, I don't know where he came up with these unit designations. He may have been able to pull up other stuff that I wouldn't otherwise have access to. But I'm going to just throw all those into here. I feel like I'm going to have a hard time with the Soviets. Oh, I really do. It will help a whole lot because one of the things I noticed when I was setting these guys up is, unlike everywhere else on the board, there were no engineers down here. Now, I had engineers over there, but there were none over here. And I'm like, well, this is the one place I fucking need them. I've got rivers all over the place. What am I going to do? And I actually set up my attacks with that kind of concept in mind. Hey, look, I think I can bust through here with enough force. Here, I can hit places that are on the other side of the river. That was kind of the concept here as well. And maybe get across the river without needing an engineer. Because the combat engineering bonus is so important. I've got 2 now, which means I can launch these columns. This is sort of open, so I figure I'm just going to deploy through here and not try to do a quick breakthrough or anything, but, you know, at least it's unopposed. So, like, yeah, it's going to be expensive for me to get across, but that's all right. So that resolved that problem, whatever the fuck it was, the excess counters, and now I'm back to where I was when I was looking in here, which was I was looking for counters like this, the air and EW counters. And I will hunt those down. Now that I have a consolidated electronic warfare table, there was one over in the combined, but that only covered this much. So I'm on game turn 1 and I look these guys up. So North German plane is going to have 5 for the Warsaw Pact. There is actually a counter for the air superiority. I used something fake before. This is the actual one that's supposed to be used for it, which is kind of cool. Dano. The big one was the hot gap map has 9 EW points for the Warsaw Pact. For some reason, I don't know why. It's like everything else feels, yeah, you know, I got like 4 per. Here 5 per, but why is Hofgab got so much EW? I don't know. Just more prepared? I have no idea. It is sort of the juncture of, I guess, East Germany and Czechoslovakia here. I guess. But and therefore, maybe they're counting, hey, they both have it. It doesn't continue through the rest of the game, but right at the early point of the game, I got a ton of EW points. Kind of all over the place for the NATO allies. Notably, the Donau front map starts off with only 2 NATO points. But again, they end up behind everything else. But it's just weird. I don't understand. Does this have to do with, like, you know, where the AWACS are located, or satellite positioning or something? I got no idea. These numbers seem so random. I would have expected a uniform amount going through the areas. I have no notes that I've read that tell me anything about why the EW points are so disparate. Like, it would feel reasonable if it's the amount of assets you have available in the area, and maybe that's the point, and also the nations that are involved. However, you're facing the U.S. forces here on the Hofgap map. It doesn't really compute to me as to why the electronic warfare is going to be that disparate across so many different places. All right, I marked everything down, and now I'm fatigued. I thought I was going to get to start moving some pieces. Or at least find the sequence of play. This game, I know I played this with my first wife, And I should have a sequence of play marker there, but friction point removal, not on the first turn, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have wanted to do it, yeah. Air power segment, we roll the die, we did that. Nuclear attack, we're not going to do that. Initiative, there isn't one. So we hit the first player segment, and this is the point where the bombardments happen. After I do the bombardments, then I have to make my decision on the airdrops. But right now I need to get away. Yeah. Like, it's been a while since I've done something big, and a really long time since I'm trying to remember if I've done a big operational game, like a really big one. The OCS that I did, the biggest one that I've done was the Burma one. And I don't know. I mean, on video. Obviously, I've done this before with the 3 maps. All right, I'm trying to look. Trying to figure out how to record these so that I don't hit the same space twice, because there's a lot of map. And what I want to do is, you know, I don't want to start over here and work my way left, or alternatively in the other direction, because the biggest clusters are kind of in the middle. So I want to hit those. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily mark places with one of these little nuke things as I fire it off. So, look, I'm going to hit this cluster, and I can pick any of the middle hexes. I'm using the air points right now to mark things, so I just shift this to 29. I should have the EW off the board because it doesn't have any effect here. I look for my dice. And now it's per unit that I check. So let's take this guy on the edge here. That's a battalion, and it just took 3. So now, hey, good thing. I already had 1 on there, so that puts that up to a 4. I could put these on top, but I think that'll be easier to clean these things up. But I got to check something. That's a battalion. I'm not sure that it can go up to 4 hits. So I got to look. This will eventually become second nature, but right now, regiments, artillery, and attack helicopters have 5. Battalions have 4. Companies have 3. What that means is I'm not actually like this. Because of the way they're recorded, I'm at 3 and over. It's going to be hard to remember how many I have. I think once upon a time when I played it the first time, I just decided, screw it, I'll make them all 5s. I'm not going to do that. All right, now we go to this one. Now we'll hit this unit. And this is going to really slow up the forces that are in the front line. What I consider the medium rank stuff, which probably means if I get enough through the airstrikes, through this initial wave of strikes, if I get enough of them out, it's worth knocking out the reinforcements with my airborne units. I'll look into the Volher's rules, but I don't think there's any way to knock out the entire French reinforcement side, or, well, the Belgians can be knocked out. These are the Dutch. I don't think there's any rules for knocking out the Dutch. But I will search for those because that would also be useful. Okay, he's all in at 3 or 4. And you can kind of see, that's another battalion. I'll get the guy underneath. You can see what a pain in the ass this is going to be, just in terms of mechanical action. That only goes to a 2, so I've got a 3 there, and he is going to be, I'm going to put him on top, because he's actually able to move. Not that that's going to happen. We're going to have to straighten things up. Get this guy. he's screwed. Checking the scale, the size of each unit as I go. One-handed finger stuff is hard. Am I doing this right? I'm gonna have to check the rules again. It just feels so devastating, right? It's just hard to believe that I'm able to do this much damage. I don't know why. Preemptive airstrike. I choose the appropriate unit. I roll a die for every unit. If the die results after subtraction, I subtract 1. I'm gonna start over. All right. Fuck. Right? Okay. Yeah, it felt like it was a little high. I'm gonna get a little high. All right, so we'll start with this guy. He had 1 on him. Okay, he took nothing. Yeah, that's a lot better. I know that my die roll was not, that good for it. That means, geez, we'll have to cut down here. These all had 1 on them. So this one would be as nuked as he looks. This next one would have taken 1 extra instead of 2 extra. The number counters are a little annoying. I don't know what the situation is, but most of them have 1s and 2s on them, or 3s and 4s, but then there are a couple of these with 2s and 3s, just to really confuse you. I'm trying to separate those out and not use them if possible. It's similar things where, I don't know, one of the game turn markers had something else on the back of it. Yeah, it had a number on the back of it. Think all the units are good? All the ones that I made are good, sort of. Okay, we're on these guys. The guy on the bottom, he would have taken 1 more instead of what he did. So he'll be, yeah, and there I go. I throw it in the wrong stack because it's confusing. He'll be like this available. This guy I have not rolled for. He's got counters upside down and mixed up in every way. There'll be 2 extra hits on him. He's not in great shape. Another thing that annoys me, and it's worse, but is that the counters that come with the game, you have to flip like this, not like this. Now, I can get used to that, but the counters that I printed are the opposite. I don't know if I can handle that. And now we're on, I guess, the last of these. My fingers are just not working very well. And we'll hit this one. We'll hit the bottom artillery first. He takes 1 extra. That's easy to do. And it goes with the number counters as well, same issue. And then the other one, he takes 2 extra. That puts him out to a 3. Now those are artillery. They can take 5, which I may have fucked up with this, saying, oh, it's a battalion. All right. My fingers are going to get in there when I have two hands to straighten things out and a tweezer somewhere. But that's the result on 1 cluster. I got 29 more of these to do, and I've got to pick them out kind of carefully. I want to hit the big clusters. I want to get those as knocked around as I possibly can. And then if I have anything left, then I start thinking otherwise. And it looks like I will. It doesn't look like there are many clusters that size, right? And 1 here, and somewhere there's like 4 counters in a cluster. I think I'll be running down, well, maybe not below that, because like here, I got all these. Here they're not next to each other. Well, we'll see. If I'm going to mark these all with these things, I think it makes more sense to just pull out 29 more of these, set this at the 60 for air points, that I'm gonna have at the beginning. So I don't have to run back and forth to this little track. I just use the counters, you know, I count them out ahead of time. Use cubes or something, but these will work fine. A pain in the ass for such a little mechanical thing. I'm not starting over. Artillery and helicopters don't get that -1. So I'm gonna add 1 hit to each of them. If I rolled a 6 on somebody, and I think I did on at least one, it's destroyed for the artillery and headquarters, artillery and helicopters. Slow going, I've killed 1 unit, done a lot of damage, no question. But it did get me thinking about those behind the lines paradrops. And so I looked through rules for Donnerfront, for North German Plain, and for the Vollers edition stuff. I don't see anything that allows you to do that kind of interdiction behind the lines. In a way, it feels so damn cheap, right? Like, I dropped my airborne units back there. Now, in the original game concept, it would have, this is just an aside, you know, I'm tired of rolling, right? But in the original design concept, the optional rule, the rules that would have allowed these interdictions to cut off the Belgians and the US forces that are coming in and whatnot, make a lot of sense. Because eventually there were going to be maps out there that those reinforcements were going to come in on. And by putting your airborne back on those maps, they could have gotten rid of that rule and made it so that that was a threat or a problem that deep in the situation. Of course, it probably wouldn't have had the same kind of impact. It probably wouldn't prevent all the Belgians from making it on the board. You know, a couple of divisions can probably handle the 1 airborne division and keep it contained. Of course, it all depends on what the victory conditions are, right? And some of me feels like I just shouldn't allow this, you know, because every goddamn time I play this game, I cancel out a whole bunch of units on both sides. Two Soviet airborne divisions and all the reinforcements that the West is going to get. In a way that I think probably isn't that realistic. Again, I think probably a couple of divisions would tie things down. I'm actually kind of curious about using those airborne forces to see what could they do if they were launched, you know, as a closer support. If we weren't trying some kind of market garden or whatever, where we're way out in front of the forces, so far in front. And I find it, again, I find the results that they produce to be somewhat unbelievable. Maybe especially with the Belgians. Not in a weird sort of way, politically, you could see Belgium saying, look, we're going to deal with this problem that's near our border first. And in the 10 or 14 turns or whatever the scenario takes, they're just not going to have that issue resolved completely. But I don't know. Anyway, I'll get back to my current task and keep kind of buzzing around in my head whether or not I want to use all my counters this time, because I never have before. I've always taken this option because it's just so advantageous. Cancel out a bunch more units than you're throwing in. You're on the offense, so theoretically, defensive units are worth more than offensive units. Like the units on defense are going to be worth more on the board. Well, that may not entirely be true because the goal is penetration in these games, which means that it means a number of things. One of which is offensive units can concentrate in one area, force their way forward, and prevent the NATO defenses, you know, prevent the NATO defenses from entirely being in position against where your main attacks are being launched. You're going for penetrative attacks. But you do have to keep your supply lines open, and that makes things trickier. The second side, and then there's the surprise rules, which also throw a monkey wrench in on what the Soviets might be trying to do. There's also just the simple fact that, like, you know, if I drop my air units somewhere like here and can link up, and that might be easier, I can get more hex row, you know, than preventing reinforcements, especially the Belgians, which come in kind of late, from doing much. And I can test out, you know, what the power of an airborne division really is when put into a situation like this, which is something that I'm just not going to have a clue about. Of course, I'm going to fuck it up if I try it, you know? That's the problem. All right. Slowly making my way through, but I found something really, really annoying. Some of the number counter units are not the same. So most of them flip like this. I found one that flips in the opposite direction. Remember, there were 3 different games, so, you know, but I think all the units for the 3 games flip the same way. All the number counters came from one of those 3 maps. Boy, is that annoying. And here's another thing. The game that was developed later, same designer, but to handle the other 2 versions, is just very, very different. Like, I had to look through the rules to see if there was a pair drop rule for it. Wow. Like, significantly different flavor to the whole game from what I saw. It would be interesting to see if someone did the reverse of this, which was to try to update the latter 3. Of course, you know, the truth of the matter is, those latter 3, the first 2 games, or the last 2 games, came out just about as, like, the Soviet Union is falling. You know, these, I don't know my dates, so I'm not going to be good for that. But this came out, let's see, this is 88. You know, there wasn't a hell of a lot of time left. So it's a much less interesting period, and the Soviets seemed a lot less likely at that point to be about to launch some sort of attack. You know, when these first guys came out, this was the beginning of the Reagan era. There was a lot of fear that Reagan would cause tensions to go up and cause something to go over. By 88, you're looking at end of Reagan, beginning of Bush, and things had cooled, or had I don't know what to say. Relations had improved a great deal. If I say cooled, you think relations have cooled. If I say warmed, you'll think the war has warmed up. But heat is on my mind, man. It's fucking cold in here. To keep in mind as I'm targeting, the units that are further back, they're not allowed to move on the first turn. They're not allowed to expend activation. They're not allowed to be activated. And so, in a way, I might be wasting shots on some of them, especially if I only get like 1 hit or something on them. Because they get a recovery. They do still get their recovery. They're just not allowed to actually move, which makes some of the ones that have a hit against them or whatever seem kind of questionable. And it's weird. It's only the games in the first series that have hits assessed to them. None of the games in the later game, neither of the later games have anything. It's just going to be a lot of little weird places where the edges are rubbing together because these were not, you know, designed with the same system. Oh boy, this is not going to be an easy game to play. All right, let's take a look. First of all, Deadpool. All of these are going to go into a single bag because the only way I will ever play this is with all of them together. Yeah, sure, somebody might sell them off separately or might want to. I'm a little worried about, like, yeah, when I finally croak, hope it's soon, but when I do, it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass with games like this because Hofgap is going to be up in the loft, and
in the box, but these guys are going to be probably all packaged together in one baggie as just the Central Front series. I don't know. Because I can't really put boxes in my filing cabinet. I guess I could. I don't see a reason why I can't. Space might be an issue at some point. All right, let's take a look at what we've got. And I'll pick them off. I didn't do a lot of hits over here because there ain't a lot of troops. Then we come over to the Hofgaup map, and you can see I got a fair concentration of attacks in play over on this section, just to try to prevent the reinforcements from coming up very quickly. And again, same thing on 5th Corps. I've got a lot in that second line. I didn't worry about the far back stuff as much. You know, I hit some things with only 3 units in the attack range, but I didn't get these guys. This seemed like a better thing. It had a better chance of wiping units out, which I see as the big advantage. I gave some precedence to the stuff that's really up near the front, that's kind of designed, you know, for that forward defense concept. So the West Germans took some hits on stuff of that nature, but not all that much. Over here on Bayeur, actually, again, very few attacks were conducted against the Bayeur map because the units are a little bit more spread out. I didn't have a piece for this, which is probably a mistake. It's hard to tell. You know, with 30 attacks sounds like a lot, but it turned out not. It turned out to hit the places that I most wanted to hit. I had some trouble finding places, you know, because at the end there were only so many with like 3 units. There were a fair number with 3 units that I had to choose amongst. But then here on the North German plain, I hit this up pretty hard, actually. You can see a lot of the Germans are concentrated for that forward defense concept. And then here, we're not too far from the borders. And then back here, there were some nice clusters as well. And that's the thing. The forward defense actually had some nice clustering where I could hit a lot of units. Now, I can't really tell you how good it was in terms of how effective the attacks were. I feel like my luck was about average, to tell you the truth, but I don't know for sure. And I don't know where the weaknesses are. I'm really not that aware. I've got there's a lot of friction points all over the place. I did put a little bit of focus on trying to hit artillery just to try to get that kill pile up, and helicopters for that matter, and, you know, prevent those units from doing a damn thing in the game, in the entirety of the game. Because I always kind of look at, if you can permanently get rid of something, that's a big deal. You know, temporarily slowing stuff, I just don't rate anywhere near as high. Although in, you know, a game like this where you're just covering the first few days of the battle, you know, neutering a unit for the first couple turns might be a big deal. So it's hard to tell. But I aimed for concentrations and I aimed for artillery on top of that. And also the forward leaning forces got a little bit of extra. This little force here worries me, but I had no easy way to hit all of it. You know, I could have like dropped something here, gotten this artillery and stuff. I'm a little worried about that, to be honest. And I'm worried about this river crossing. Up here, there's not that much forward leaning that I'm too terrified of. I hit the stuff that was. Over here, if anything, it's even more sparse at the front. I must have hit these guys. I'm just taking the counter. Yeah, just taking the counter off already. I'm like, whoa, that looks like a tasty treat. But yeah, and then Donau front, very little, like I said, just over at the edges. And I am wiped out from doing that. I may take a nap, actually.
It's like I got raid. It's 2.5 hours till I have to seriously start playing raid, but I'm in no condition to do this right away, and I don't know. I cleared off all the strike markers. That's not something I would come back again and report to you, except I have other things to say. Not too big a deal. The one thing that brought me back to the camera was Poochie counters. The Poochie counters are not terrible in terms of like when I just finger them or whatever. They're a little harder to manipulate than the normal counters, the homemade stuff that I've got, notably the ops markers, but also over here the units on it. The one thing I did find was a pain in the ass. So these later maps, for whatever reason, aren't lying as flat, probably because I didn't like, all the older maps have been played, have been laid out for a while at other times. I didn't flatten any of my maps though. I didn't put any weight on them to try to reduce the poochiness, and that was a mistake, because if I roll dice over on this map, for example, don't roll dice on the map. Well, about the only place I can find to safely roll dice is little areas of the map that are kind of clear. But the Poochie counters on a Poochie map causes issues. I also had one where I got a direct hit with the dice on somebody. Maybe these guys over here or something, and I had a counter spill that went onto the floor, which was nasty. Good way to lose counters that way. But yeah, I mean, I have so little room for anything on this table. Like, there's just no place for me to put a box top or something like that to roll in. If I was really clever, I could do the Avalon, the ASL tourneys. They used to put the dice in a little glass and shake them and drop it over. But the thing is, I need to be able to roll a lot of dice, and I need to be able to do it pretty quickly and everything. And if I start adding mechanical complications to that, like a little cup, that's going to be harder to cope with. Just like even a box top would be hard to cope with. So I don't know. I just realized that my setups are wrong for the Warsaw Pact. I have, and yeah, it's Thursday. I can't believe how late in the week it is. Tomorrow I go dancing. What the hell? Time just, I don't know. But I believe these are regimental units, and the Warsaw Pact can't stack two of them in a single space. So I'm going to have to rework their setup. This is important because I was considering, I read a response to a review on Fifth War, I think, where Jason C., I can't remember his last name, a really active on BGG, very thoughtful posts. I don't always agree with his premises and analysis, but it's too well detailed. Like, he's not someone I would engage in to argue about on a point-by-point basis about anything, because he just brings way too much detail into it. I'll work on certain points or whatever, but it's just beyond my willingness because I can't formulate my arguments in the same sort of way. I just can't, and it's like, it's not even worth trying. Anyway, he's got arguments about this game in the sense that it's almost impossible to dislodge even small units. And I'm trying to look into that. And I started pawing through, hey, what do I have on the field? And then I realized, wait, I got these guys stacked too deep. Because, something like this has a strength of 11. I could get like a 5-to-1 on it. I mean, we're talking about busting through the weakest of units, but in a sense, that's actually a lot of what one of his arguments is. So if I look at 5 to 1, and we'll do it in broken because a flat terrain is unlikely, we're looking at a situation where on a march attack, which is sort of the most likely, you're going to be getting about equal odds in terms of what's being done. So what is damage in this? Well, it's a friction point. He's got his arguments about that as well. And it really does look like it's going to be very, very hard to dislodge these things. Now, where do you have to get the odds to make it better than that? Because, you know, his statement is kind of the break-even is 3 to 1. And that looks about right. Like I said, it's a very smooth chart. 5 to 1 doesn't do a hell of a lot more. And we'd probably be doing a hasty attack. There are no die roll modifiers or anything like that. To start getting something really hefty, you have to get up to around 9 to 1. 8 to 1 will do, you know, maybe more damage to the defender. But you really have to shift it up there. And his other statement is in the cities, that goes up to 7 to 1 where the break-even point is, which is very hard to achieve unless you have a prepared attack. And the opponent can kind of just give way a hex if you did prepare an attack, because the opponent gets a chance to move. You know, every time you move, the opponent gets a chance to move. Of course, terrain and ground is what the game is about. But his objection seems to rely upon units retaining some fighting capability. There's not going to be any overwhelming destruction or anything. I'm not sure how much I feel about that. To me, there would be some remnant left of almost any unit. Is it at all functional and capable? Yeah, that's where the question comes. If I've got a 3 to 1 attack on something, and it's not like, you know, the attack numbers are higher than the defense or anything like that. If I've got like a 3 to 1 attack on something, it's probably still going to survive. But there comes a point where something's not going to survive. And where is that point? Well, I mean, up here, a prepared assault at like, you know, 12 to 1 or something like that can get you up there. But yeah, you're just not going to eliminate units. Units aren't going to surrender, whatever. However, they won't be able to retreat and whatnot. But, you know, in a half day's fighting, some of these formations probably should be destroyed to the point where they really can't come back. And a half day is 1 turn, right? You know, without, of course, the question is, it's a half day's hard fighting. How many impulses is that? Well, I don't know. But yeah, he just doesn't buy the premise of the design. Myself, I'm a little bit less skeptical about it than he is. But I'm also, again, not as, certainly not as versed in modern combat. Okay. I will have to reset my units because I fucked up and set them up too much. Every time I think I'm about to start it, I'm like, hey, you know, what is it? It's, this is, I guess, 7:30 in the morning. And it's going to get a little bit lighter, there's no question of that, but not a hell of a lot today. It's going to be rainy all day, so I'm going to rely on these other lights. And probably sleep during, you know, not too long from now. First thought was this was much worse than I thought it would be, but it really wasn't that bad. You can see I've spread out a little teeny bit, maybe. I don't know if you can see or not. But Warsaw Pack's allowed to stack three high, but only 1 regiment in a hex. Different stacking directions, whatever. And it's kind of annoying to have different sets of rules you have to pay attention to for the side. It just, like the stacking instructions are very different. It's not like OCS gives everything stacking point values, and that just kind of fits into my mind better, right? Like, you could duplicate this with the OCS system by giving a regiment of, you know, like, let's see. Let's say make, see, the problem is every NATO unit would have the same stacking value. And so you couldn't go by just size. It would still be by size by nationality, which would cause just as much of a problem. So I don't know. But yeah, basically I had to spread some units out. Where it really kind of hurt, I think, the most is for the Czechs, where their mechanized infantry has kind of shitty numbers. All right, well, I'm ready to try moving some pieces, I guess. Oh, not quite. You know what? I'm allowed to position my units on the border. I'm going to move things up a little bit so I can do prepared attacks on these units and wipe them out more quickly. So I am going to shift the positioning a little bit. Everywhere I've kind of thought, oh, this is a kind of a mobile warfare game. I should be right up against the border. Here, I'm fine because the NATO units aren't right on the border. They would be here. I didn't want to make the attack from there. That's fine. But elsewhere, they wouldn't. And I kind of want to take advantage of this gap. I think I can gain something there. But over here, I definitely want to be right on the border so that I can hit. Now, right on the border is just these few units. So I'll move those up so that I can launch prepared attacks. I'm trying to find a place where I can find this. Unfortunately, this may be the best. Yeah, this is an AM turn. I thought it was. And now I have to find a die. Those great things are not dice. Somewhere I got my dice. I'm going to have to bring more dice down and roll on the air power table. I have to roll on it because on a 5 or a 6, we're going to have ground fog. And we have ground fog. That will aid my mobile attacks and may give me a reason for that. Now, when I think about that 3-to-1 or whatever, right? Or in some cases, it may be much higher if we look over here. You know, this is an 11-to-1 prepared attack. You're not going to see this kind of situation, you know, very often. But let's hit this unit first. We will do a mobile attack. Okay, so this unit now has 12 ops points. It'll be doing a mobile attack on this. It's in a city. Oh well. How much EW do I have? I don't have all that much. So I want to look at what could NATO do? What would Jesus do? What can NATO do if I'm doing a mobile attack against the city here? Well, they don't have any artillery within range. They do probably have some attack helicopters. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I don't think they do, actually. I don't think there are any back here. Okay. So I don't have to waste EW on this. So I have a 12-to-1 mobile attack. And let's take a look. I don't have an engineer with me. That would be very useful. But I'm going to be on this column. Let's look. I'm not surrounding them. It's not multi-hex. There is fog or smoke. So I get 1 to the right. So we were 12-to-1 in the city. We go up to 13-to-1 in the city. Towns are the red dots. I'm not across the river. I do not want to release chemicals. I could conceivably throw in like an air point to bring that up another level, but I don't think I want to do that at this point. So I'm going to be doing a 12-to-1 mobile attack. Now remember, a mobile attack does 1 less damage to the enemy. But with this fog in play, I want to use it. And I guess I roll a die. I get a 3, which is not too great. Now, what have I done? I spent, where do we have ops points? I believe I spent 6 ops points to do a prepared attack. It doesn't really say there. Okay, I was at 13-to-1, I roll a 3. I do 0-4, that's 0-3. West Germans have a rule. They have to be, I don't remember. Okay, we've got a 0-4 result. Let's try to remember that. Move this shit. West German, are not here. It's not NATO paralysis. It's not there. Fuck. It may be in the Bayor special rules. There's fucking rules everywhere. It's not in the Central Front Series rules, but remember the Bayor exclusive rules have been added to every scenario right now. So here we got Soviet doctrine. Not seeing it there. Fuck. I am not seeing it. I don't think it's here. You know, the SPI rules, if you're dealing with like one set of rules, that's fine. But here I've got them spread out throughout so many pages that I do not know where the fuck I'm going to find this. It's not going to be in here. Is it here? West German territorial, that's not it. West German doctrine, this is the one. No Western unit can retreat to fulfill combat loss requirements until it's within 2 FPs of being destroyed. Okay, and we're going to have to swap batteries before I finish this fight. So I'm at 0-4, I'll swap battery. Of course, I have to remind myself, is that a real 0-4 or is it a 0-4 that I fucked up, like before the -3? And I think it was 0-4 before the -1, so it's actually a 0-3. Okay, I was afraid of that. That means this unit has just taken 3 friction points. Now, it is a company-sized unit. Do we have anything that tells me this on charts? I got too many charts for my liking. No, we don't. So what we're going to have to do is look in the base rules under friction points. Again, we'll get used to this shit eventually, but a company has a maximum friction point level of 3. That means I can take 1 friction point, and now I'm within 2 of being destroyed. No, I have to take 2 to be within 2 of being destroyed. So I take 2. Do I want to fall back or not? I think I do. I've got the river line still, so we'll fall back there. That would cause 1 less friction point for the attacker. Now, he has just spent 6 of his ops points. I don't have an ops point marker. I'm going to use the fog marker, whichever side it's going to be on. to handle that. I've spent 6 of my ops points for this. Now, I could have launched this into it, but that would have made him spend 6 as well, and I want these 2 units to launch an attack here, I think. So I move into here. I have advanced as many points as he did not spend. So now I'm in a position where I could launch another prepared attack against this guy, but it's across the fucking river. Let's see what the odds of that would be. It could be another mobile attack, so I get another 12 to 1 there. And I mean, I can go with a non-mobile attack at 11 to 1. That's not necessarily bad. It would be bad if I was losing, a lot of defenses. So, but I get a shift for the mobile attack. Now this is going to be in not rough woods, but rough marsh, broken, or woods. No, that's broken woods. This will be flat woods. This will be flat woods. So this is this column here. I said 12 to 1, maybe 11 to 1, depending. Let's look at my shifts. It's not multi-hex. There's fog or smoke, so I get a shift in that direction. There is a town, so that goes against me. It's across a river. All attacking non-artillery are across the river. That's 4 shifts. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not throwing chemicals or anything in. There was no reason to fire artillery. So I'd be attacking on this row. This is painful, but I think I want to do it anyway. Do I want to do a prepared attack? Well, I don't have the costs. Yeah, I didn't fucking look up the costs. Let's make sure. I believe it's 6, but I don't have those in front of me. And this would be a really useful chart. So, where do we find it? I don't know. Combat. The appropriate number of operations points. Yeah, that's not very helpful. I need a little fucking chart for this. I'm not seeing one. Oh! Okay. I think it's written here. It is not. All right. Not nice. It would be really helpful if they had the number of ops points you had to spend. I don't know where the fuck to find that. I'm not finding an ops point. Now, in the original game, remember, Soviet strategy is just to puncture as far as they can. But in the original game, the game was entirely based on the victory point spaces on the game and making a decision of that. I think NATO uses the victory point spaces, but I don't have any here. So it's like, I got no idea. We're not going to really be able to judge victory. We know NATO's going to try to hold on to what they consider important territory, and the Soviets are going to try to get depth of penetration, and we'll just see what we get. But we're still at this point where we're trying to look up how much it costs. Here it is, friction points, or ops points. So a prepared attack would be 6. A hasty attack would only be 3. And that would give me some additional movement once I cross that bridge. Now, the bridge doesn't help me on the attack. I still face this whole thing. But let's say I did a hasty attack. That would just be 1 shift down. So instead of this 1, 4, I'd be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd still gain a 1. I think I want to do the prepared attack, honestly. I honestly just do. And this doesn't hold the number of ops spent because it doesn't go up to 12. Oh, what the fuck. Paired attack, I guess. All right. We roll a 1. All right. That's going to be 4 hits on this thing. This thing has to take a hit before it retreats, but then it's within its allowance to retreat. Now, if I retreat, I do nothing to this. If I let myself die, on the other hand, I do a friction point, which is worth more. It's hard to tell, right? This is a really shitty unit. I'm not going to be able to use this. So I am going to give that up, and we walk all the way over here. I should really have these counters near me, but it's kind of hard because there's no table space. Like, I had them here when I was dealing with the bombing, but I got nowhere to put them right now. So I put a 1 under this unit. This unit is destroyed. Now, it took 4 hits. It was only able to take 2 of them, destroying itself. I had a 1 under there. Didn't realize that. Which means I have a 2-hex advance, which I can make to here. And this unit is used. And since it's a puffy counter, I get to put it like that. Letting that unit be destroyed, though, that was entirely my decision as NATO, right? And it was essentially to cause an extra friction point to this really large unit. But whatever. Again, you know, Jason's argument had to do with not the Soviet goal, had to do with a game that used the victory points on the maps as the sole determining factor, whereas when you make ground gained the victory the victory conditions, which is what it became as soon as Bayar came out. When you make ground gain the victory condition, or is this just an optional rule? This is just an optional rule. But once you play that optional rule and make ground gain the victory condition, and in a way it is anyway with the victory point hexes, lost units, nothing, any of that, none of that matters. So the real question is, if you don't fight too hard on defense, can you always extricate yourself if you're not surrounded? And I think the answer is yes. And I don't think it's that unreasonable. Would a small force be overrun? Yeah, at some level or another, a very tiny force would just be overrun. A company versus a regiment? I don't know. Again, I don't have the information for that. All right, we moved a piece. I consider that a victory. This is kind of like when I was facing Vietnam, a game which he very much loves. I've got to say, I have the same kind of, Jesus, that was a lot of effort to move a piece. Now, it's going to get a lot easier as I get used to it. There's no question of that. But, unlike Vietnam, this game didn't have a payoff. Vietnam had this sort of strategic stage payoff in between all the hell. Here, I got to work my way across the entire map with attacks like that. It looks to me like my battery's not charging. I took one glance at it and it decided to. And this battery's already wearing down. I would love to be able to get through the first player phase, essentially, on this video before I load it up. I think it's going to be a fucking long video at that point. Obviously, I'm not going to go into this much detail for every attack, but I may for at least one more. Okay, so I managed to beat a 1-1 infantry company. Or not infantry, armored cav company. I'm impressed. All right, to here. Do I want to do this next? I think so. I'm going to be doing mobile attack again. That's 26 going against 5. Do I want to? Yeah, or sorry, 26 going against 2 for mobile. Because that's the underlined number. These guys use underlines over here. It's a little cuter animation or cuter design symbol. So 26 to 2, that gets me to 13 to 1 in the city. I don't need to fire any artillery or anything. I don't think I need to fire chemicals on this. I am going to do a prepared attack. Both units now spend their 6. I got the ground fog into play, but I got problems. It's a multi-hex battle. Each attacking unit after the first gives me a shift to the right. Fog smoke, we already counted that. But it is across the river with at least one attacking unit across a river with no engineer. That shifts me 2 to the left. And I'm not going to throw chemicals in. So I'm on the 13 to 1 on the city table, which I feel is pretty decent. We get a 2. That's a 0-4. It's a mobile attack, so that's 3 hits. This is... I think there's 2 little lines there. So it is a battalion. I believe they can take 4 hits. How much did I say I'm taking? I said I'm taking 3. Do I want to retreat or not? I kind of think I don't want to retreat. Well, I can retreat back to this city. Yeah. So my 3 hits, I'm allowed to take 4. Nope, 3 is 2 of destruction. I got to eat it all. There were no hits on the attacker. Now, here's what's important. One of these units is used up, but the other one can still make a prepared attack at 6 to 1 with its remaining ops points. What does that mean? See, this is where it gets ugly. If I'm at, and again, I don't need to use EW because there's nothing in range. The helicopters we checked, the artillery, it's back here, you know. So 6 to 1 puts us down to here, which is nowhere near as good a table. We're going to have some shifts in our favor. But what happens if I throw some artillery in? Well, artillery are worth different amounts in mobile combat, and I don't remember how much. Is it on a chart? I doubt it. So what we do is we look back at the rules. I think it's 1 or 2, but I don't, you know, like, but it's both. It's 1 or 2, and it's not absolutely in my head why it would be one or the other. So artillery and attack helicopters, when supporting mobile, use a strength of 1, except Warsaw Pact artillery using direct fire, which is double to a strength of 2. Okay, so that's the 1 or 2. Gonna have to look everything up on these first attacks. So each artillery shot I can fire, so every 2 artillery I could throw a point in. Well, that's not very good. Better for me to use some chemicals. So at 6 to 1, let's take a look. No engineering, none of this. It's no longer a multi-hex. Fog or smoke gets me out to 7 to 1. It's not across a river now. This is chemicals turns 1 through 4. Shift to the WP player. 3 for the WP. That gets me out to 10 to 1. In order to do that, I gotta walk all the way over here and get a counter. I mean, I guess I could put stuff on my stove, but my stove sometimes gets water on it. So I will pick an artillery piece that's not too impressive. and fire a single. Now, I could fire this, but yeah, we don't want to do that. All right, so we threw some chemicals in. Did I count them in? I believe so, because I'm way out at 10 to 1 now. And we're going to do another prepared attack because it's less likely to do harm to me. And I get a 3. Was this a mistake? I don't think so. I think we're going to be hitting at least 2 numbers no matter what. So 3 on the prepared attack. That's 1 to 2. That gets shifted to 1, 1 because this is a mobile attack. Now this guy can still take 1, and I can force the enemy. This is not a bad unit. I kind of don't want to lose it, but I can force the enemy, or the Soviets, to take a hit here, and they're now out of action points, and that's a second battle where I did a prepared assault with multiple units. Now granted, it was in a tougher position. I could have had an engineer up here at the front. If I was wise, I probably would have, to reduce the impacts, but the plan was that this engineer would help me crossing here somehow. I don't know. I'm going to screw a lot up. I can guarantee it, man. And that'll give me an attack here, which I do not have to do prepared. One of the problems that I'm facing now is I'm using all of my regular ground units to break through, and I'm not sitting here. I have one armored unit that I can use for kind of the breakthrough attack, like that I can use to put forward and get somewhere. Now I could conceivably get him behind here, have units surrounded, which would be what? That's just 1 to the right. Feels kind of painful. I would rather just cut his supply, I think. Why don't we get him moving? Hey, we haven't done much movement. Okay. So these are 1 each. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I entered an enemy zone of control. Doesn't cost us anything. I've spent 4 movement to get, or 4 action points to get here, or ops points. Do I want to do a mobile attack at 5 to 1 against this unit, or do I just want to sit here and maybe do another multi-hex attack? Now, if I do another multi-hex, that's a friction point on each of these. You know, I mean, there's 1 friction point left on this damn unit. It's not going to starve. It's not going to just surrender or anything. I kind of have to attack it. I feel like I'm probably at my best hitting it here. I need to do mobile because that is too defensive a unit. So we're going to do a prepared attack again. That puts us out to 10. That'll give us a couple of ops points after the attack. This guy probably had more ops points. He could have pushed on further. Well, all right. So that gets me 10 to 2. That'll give me a 5 to 1 here. I'm surrounding him. That gives me a shift. It's not multi-hex, but I get a fog. Somewhere or another, the surprise rules should be here. I feel like I'm missing something. That's going to get me to 7 to 1. I'm going to throw chemicals in to get it up to 10 to 1 because it's the first turn of the game. And we got another, I don't want to use that. Wow. I'll do it off this same artillery. He's kind of a shitty artillery, so he's good for this. And that gets us out here at 10 to 1. This is a prepared attack. We get a big 6, which sucks, because we do a 0, 1. We did nothing. Now we have a couple of points. Now, we looked up the cost for, oh, it's got to be here. It was here somewhere. The different attack costs. I swear it was on here. There we go. It's in a weird place. Like it's where I expected it, but just not quite. We could do a march attack to try to clear that. We got nothing off of our ops points. A march attack would get us down to this row. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to drop, yeah, let's just keep dropping chemicals from that self-propelled gun, because it's a shitty gun, and I think I'm going to want to move my other artillery up closer. Okay, and one more attack, this time just a march attack. Can we even hurt him? This is just a fucking waste. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we had a 2 and 6. Oh well. Yeah, I spent some friction point. I spent a friction point on that artillery that was just a waste. I had a 1/3 chance of doing something. Okay, he's done. That gives you some idea of what we're looking at. Let's take a look at the final attack here, and then at least partially. I don't know. I don't want to go into full detail on all of these, because this is just going to take fucking forever if I'm explaining everything. But this is what's involved in doing combats in this game. The combats are kind of painful. However, you do get more used to it. I think these are probably simpler than the combats that that OCS has, but there's a whole lot more of them right now. I don't know. If you had the same kind of covering force in OCS, I think you'd have to hit everything. It's one of the reasons I don't want to play. Again, I don't remember what the one is, but it's the invasion of France, and it's like, wow. 2 armies fully prepared, air power, everything all in place. That is not how I want to reintroduce myself to the system, where there's just decisions to be made all over the place in terms of intervention and everything. Here, at least, I've got some space. There's not really a capability for the West Germans to intervene. Now, should these guys? Does the doctrine make sense for the covering force? I don't know. Like, I feel like that part of it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. It feels to me that the covering force should be free to make its choices as it wishes. However, it does want, no matter who's no matter who's covering the troops there are, West German or otherwise, you do want to inflict some cost on the enemy. Those are not important pieces. Their biggest goal is to slow the advance so that you have time to start bringing a real defense into play. Significant difference on this attack, except I'm in a rough woods or something. I don't know what I'm on. Actually, I think I should be on rough. Let's move this down. Oh, that's worse. Okay, so that unit takes a hit. Well, maybe. So this is a mobile attack. That means it's 1/4. This unit's allowed to eat 3. If I take a destruction, again, I cause a hit here. This gets the advance after combat automatically. But I have taken a hit. Now, what I was interested in was if I retreat, what does it do? But if I retreat, I don't cause that cost. So I want to cause that cost. Let's see. Unbridged River is just 3 for the Warsaw Pact. What else are we moving into here? We have a choice between Swamp or this Rough. Rough is 3. Oh, what the fuck's marsh? Ew, we don't want to go there. Okay. So I have 6 left. That gives me 3, 4, 5, 6. And we make it across the river to there. So we've actually gotten some ground with that unit. Now the question is what we want to do with our reserves here. And what do we have for reserves? We moved the 1 reserve back over here. We have all this artillery. I need to move the artillery. It can't be, I mean, it could stay where it is, but if it does, it means I don't get to push forward. But I feel like this force has failed to break through sufficiently to put a threat on Hamburg immediately. And you know what? Fuck the West German territorial units. This game is hard enough for the Soviets. Like, a bunch of another three friction points, little barriers in the way in every city. That's going to be a nightmare. So fuck them. But realistically, though, they would be there. And if you want to judge this system, wow, NATO really can stop you in your tracks. And a lot better than they can in the old NATO game to begin with. Like, in that game, you pay a movement point cost. Like, I think you pay 2 extra movement points to cross the border. That's what the covering force effect is here. Look what it did to me here. Look how much it sort of slowed my advance. I mean, otherwise, I'd be right up in here, you know, with no problem. All right. I am going to, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with these artillery. I can position them for direct fire. This guy's probably going to sit back. This guy is a battalion. This guy's a battalion. How do battalions stack? Because I know regiments are, I'm sorry, that's a brigade, isn't it? Let's see. That sure looks like an X to me. I think it's only the regiments that can't overstack. Like, the artillery are given brigade size, but they aren't bigger. Oh, no more than 3. In addition, a regiment size, you may never stack with another regiment size unit. Okay. So yeah, those artillery brigades are, although they're brigades and not regiments, they're considered smaller for stacking restrictions. So that's cool. Yeah, I probably will move artillery into place. Let's see, what about the engineer? Let's get him moving. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get him over there. He really could have been used better elsewhere. Rocket artillery, I don't know. Let's get that over in the front too. Okay, this is pale green is, I think, like broken or something like that. So that's 2 to move into. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to here. 7, 8. Why don't we put it all the way up here? And we'll just, I'll keep shifting things into play, but yeah, I mean, the fact that this thing lived is really a pain in my ass. And there's a picture of what that sort of formation, the 18th Guard tank, has done with some supporting units and whatnot, in terms of its advance. A few hexes in, across the border. I can, though, remember, I have advantages early in the game as the Soviets in terms of the chemical weaponry is more effective, etc. So I may well want to push these guys harder, to take another friction point on them, to get them up into Hamburg or whatever, and start threatening that little advanced force. On the other hand, you got to stop and recover at some point. There's only so far you can push your units, and once they're flipped over, they start being less effective later in the turn. Their movement gets slowed. I think they're fine in combat, but their movement gets slowed to the point where they're paying basically double in order to advance. So, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd like to clear this problem. There's no question of that. But again, it costs me an extra friction point to do it. I feel like the defense here has been very effective. And that was against a prepared position. There are no more prepared positions over here. In fact, I don't think there are anywhere else on the maps. Nope. So everything else is going to be reflecting fighting where I can't do multi-hex combat or anything like that. I kind of want to show this one, actually. I'm going to launch an attack from this up onto this armored cav here. I spend one ops point to move to there, because here I've got the engineer involved. I've got 19 to 1, 18 to 1, I'm guessing. These guys, I'm sure, they do not have an attack, a mobile bonus. So 18 to 1 there. Do I actually want to have that much? Not really. 14 to 1 is good enough. I'll keep that other armor, but if I was wise, I wouldn't have set it up this way. $14 to 1, what's my terrain? Oh! Okay, that's not swamp. What the hell is that? That's like weird green rustly stuff. Like there's another terrain type in here. Maybe it's high water. I think that's high water, whatever that means. I'm going to have to look in... see, there's no key on this, on the newer versions. We're reliant on the wonder of 3W, right? We look around, there's no key on the board. None whatsoever. Did I have to cut it off? No. I wouldn't have cut something that had print on it. Okay. And what does it say here? The terrain key explains the symbols and colors used. Optional season determination. Like, there's definitely cool shit in this, but unfortunately it is 3W. They didn't include a terrain key on the map. I don't see one in the rules. Maybe there's something I'm not aware of, but I'm going to assume that's high water, and therefore I can just hit it. Because it seems to be clustered around this, I don't know. Like, this is kind of swampy, right? We got marsh. Marsh looks much marshier. The high water may be like a seasonal thing. Anyway, we'll treat it as flat. So what were we at? We were going to just attack... fuck. Stupid counter. We were going to attack at just 14 to 1. But we have an engineer crossing the river now. 14 to 1 puts us out... What is it? There's no high water here. What the hell? I don't know. There's this flat high water. What the fuck? Okay, I'm going to treat it as flat. It may turn into marsh, like under seasonal or something, whatever. All right, that puts us way out here. What do we got? We got fog or smoke. That gives us a shift in our favor. But we're going across the river. So 1, 2, 3 against us. 4 against us, plus 1 shift that we had. Oh, wait, we have an engineer, though. And engineer included. Oh, that was only 1. So that should be 1 and 1. I should be at the best chart possible. Now I decide how much do I want to attack. Now, this is kind of interesting. It looks to me like a hasty attack. No, it still causes 1. And no matter what, I'm going to have a possibility of getting 1 hit on myself. This, where am I attacking? I'm attacking here. This doesn't clear the road, but it would get me to here if I don't do a prepared attack and I succeed. So I could like clear the entire way with that. I don't know, do these have zones of control? I thought companies don't. Uh-oh, time to look up more rules. Artillery attack units and engineers don't exert a zone. This will exert a zone. Okay. But there might be something special. There was something about being able to leave a zone more easily. But I don't want to. I want to blow these fuckers out of my way, I guess. So what the fuck am I doing? I'm way over at the full chart. I could do a prepared attack, but then I don't get a prepared follow-up. That's fine. Why is this at 1? Is that really where it is? Yeah, that's really where it is. All right, let's cross the river with a prepared attack. This is the important one, right? We don't need prepared. Let's drop that to the next lowest, the march attack, which is, hasty attack, which is 3. So I get 3 back. That gives me more ops points. I think that chart is just as good. I'm sorry, it's the hasty. What the fuck? They got these screwed up. Whatever, it's the middle column. The middle column costs the middle amount. They're written that way. Yeah, okay. I roll a big 6, which gets me a 0-4. It is a mobile, so I do 3. This can take 3. I can stymie this attack. Force him to attack again. If he attacks again, I'm going to take a hit and I'm going to be destroyed. But that seems better than letting the river cross. So 3 more ops points and I got myself, I don't know, a 0-5 or whatever, which is pretty good. Now it's actually only 4. That was destroyed by the first one, which means there's 3 left. I'm allowed to move into this hex for free. But then I can actually move 3 more hexes on an advance as long as I don't enter another zone. I'm allowed to enter this zone for free on the advance. It may not be optimal. Like maybe I want it to use this unit to launch an attack here, but I think I'd rather push an attack with another unit instead. So we're going to do that and just try to break through here and get another column into a better position than this column got itself into. So I slid up to here. This one took a 0-4. I could just take a destruction and that would be that. But then this would be able to keep spending ops points. So what the hell? That doesn't really do me much good. So I'm going to retreat from there. This is not a West German unit. This is a Dutch unit. So I can retreat upon taking, it's not soft, upon taking 1 hit, I can retreat. So I'll retreat 3 hexes. Now that gives him a follow-up on me, but so what? The follow-up though, I've still got ops points. The pursuit doesn't cost any, so I can launch yet another attack on that unit. Doesn't seem like a bad idea to me, honestly. I can't keep pushing forward. I'm in a zone. I can't I can't leave the zone without paying a whole shitload of points and whatnot. So I have to keep the engagement for the contact. I could have avoided it, but I didn't want to do that. Now after another pursuit, I ignored his path and just charged forward. I've still got 4 more ops points. that's enough that I could drop into here and launch a mobile attack on this unit, which might well be worth it. And I could drop chemicals using an air power if I wished. There's no way in hell I have artillery that has that range. The biggest is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a non-divisional artillery, so I could actually use that to support. I also have to worry a little bit because I'm within range that I would have to use an EW point to make that attack. Do I want to? Okay, I think so. So I spend one more ops point. That gets me to 9. I have 3 more for a hasty attack. Now at this point, I have 12 to 2. That's going to be 6 to 1 in the city. This is not great, right? I use an air point. I'm just testing out all the combat system here. I use an air point to drop chemicals. I can do that? I'm not sure I can do that. If I can't do that, I'm not doing this. Let me look. Thought it's a little weird because here they say each player may declare to use an artillery unit to release chemicals and smoke, but a player may use air points to release chemicals but not release smoke. So I am going to release the chemicals. That gets me 1, 2, 3, plus 1 for the fog. I don't have to release smoke. We're not anywhere near set yet, right? And that gets me over to here. This is not a great table to be on. I'm going to be doing a hasty attack. This is at 9. I'm going to be doing a hasty attack, which means it's, you know, I got a 50-50 chance of taking a loss. What happens if I move that? I think I want to shift it at least 1 column. This is a 2-point unit, so I'm going to throw 2 more air points in for that. And I'm going to use an EW. Okay, I have to declare all my artillery fire before I do the EW attack. Now, for the EW, we look on something. We don't find that something. It's not here. We look in the base rules. I need a 1 through 3 for EW to be successful. I do not get success there, which means the Germans can throw in artillery and helicopter support. Well, my artillery is actually unavailable. Had I peeked, I could see that. Helicopters, how far am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm looking to see if I have any. I really don't see any. 14, 15, 16. I'm not going to count it out if I can't find any. Maybe I killed my artillery over, or my air power over here. Yeah. There are helicopters. Oh, there's one up here. So let's see if we can get to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Nope. Okay, so we're not able to actually get any support in. The EW was wasted. Too bad. Shouldn't have looked, or should have counted beforehand, right? Not going to give it back. And we roll on here. We get a 6, which is probably not too good. We get a 1-1. Both take a friction point. Now, got to switch batteries. Not a good result, though. An absolutely lousy result because, remember, it was a mobile attack. So the Germans actually didn't take anything. All right. I'll move these units. These guys probably aren't going to get any attacks, but they are going to cross the river and try to position themselves to be ready for the next impulse, assuming the Germans don't just pull away. Now, one of Jason's comments that I read in his thing was, well, you can just pull back with units. And not really. You got a chance of pulling back. You're likely to, but it's not guaranteed. Wow. Yeah, I love the view here. Just, I don't know, the fogs and whatever. I just feel like I'm in a special place. All right, onward then. And I am going to probably switch batteries again so I can start charging, finish playing this, and then take a break. So this is the results on this map. Pushed up deep into Hamburg. Again, if I had the territorial units, they would be playing havoc with me. I can guarantee you I'd have territorials in Hamburg and Hanover, anywhere, you know, that I really kind of want to slow the enemy down. I'm glad to get rid of them. It makes my life so much easier, and just getting bogged down with that shit doesn't sound like any fun. I'm not necessarily done yet. I have some airborne that I could drop further in, if I can figure out what the fuck to do with them. And I'm still tempted to, like, just, you know, wipe out the Belgian forces by throwing the airborne in there just to make life easier, because it's very hard for me to think about the whole, well, what would I want to do with my airborne? Cut supply, probably. But also, you know, maybe put myself in an advanced position so that, like, I kind of force the enemy to fall back, but we don't know. We don't know what would happen. This line here, there's a lot of artillery that's exposed. The armored cav could try to screw with it. It's not a terrible thing to do. I don't know. You know, it's not going to kill the artillery, but it will conceivably, you know, do some friction points to it and slow the advance down in a way that I'm not sure that these units are capable of doing. It'll kind of depend on how much I'm allowed to move, bringing things forward. Likewise, and I'm going to have to guesstimate that, because the North German Plain and Donau Front maps, I don't have appropriate instructions as to what units are frozen on the first turn and whatnot. And over here, pushing into this mountainous region, we didn't make any attacks. We just set ourselves up for some. The Germans may try to avoid us, I don't know. Or they may stick around and let us do, you know, multi-hex combat here, but here it's not. And again, there's some artillery that's semi-exposed. I moved the self-propelleds up to do direct fire attacks if I so desire. I don't know if I will, you know. The odds are pretty good already. I don't feel like I need to add a couple more strength points against those units. But it does protect them, which is kind of part of it. It also gets them up forward where I can move more rapidly. I am going to load this up as the A part of turn 1 of the video. I don't know how many parts there are going to be. Because, you know, again, a turn is broken up into pulses. Obviously, I spent a lot more effort trying to show the combat system, some of the movement, whatever. Although the movement's not that exciting when you have these little weird diamonds and stuff. The lookups are a pain when you have terrain types that you don't know what they are because there's no key. Thanks, 3W. You are such a great company. I mean, look, I enjoy some of the games 3W put out, but man, everything they did was so slipshod. They felt so amateurish, and for them to have taken over S&T, it was just such a depressing time for me in terms of wargaming. Like, looking at what was available, the only things I knew about were what was the little trickle that Avalon Hill was putting out at that point. Avalon Hill was always slow in terms of printing games, but that were, a lot of them didn't impress me. Some of them were really cool. I like Geronimo, I like Republic of Rome. Those came out kind of late. But Victory Games, I think, had slowed down. They had had a big burst early on in the 80s, and then it was just like their printing, I think, slowed down compared to, to about the same level Avalon Hill was. I don't know why they were able to get that big burst to begin with. What the hell else was out there? I mean, look, GMT and the gamers had both started by this point, but they weren't on my radar at the point that I'm talking about, where I was just looking and I'm like, the hobby's fucking dead. I mean, this shit, rehashes of the Napoleon of Waterloo system, stuff like that. There were other companies already out there, but they felt fringe to me comparatively. And, and I honestly, I think GMT was pretty fringe at that point. The gamers felt like they were putting out a pretty good product by this point. As soon as I found it, which may have been second edition of some of their bigger games, like Terrible Swift Sword, or not Terrible Swift Sword, Thunder at the Crossroads. But man, I was like, I buy a new game and it's a fucking 3W. It was the only thing I could find, and I was like, oh god, it sucks. It's just such shit. Why do they exist? And their philosophy was kind of this, oh, we're obviously not with this game, but although they did simplify it, but it was a let's go back to the classics era when wargaming was sort of at its peak popularity or whatever. And I gotta say, I didn't want to go back to that era. I was so excited by the stuff akin to this that SPI was doing and that Victory Games was doing, and they were just such a fucking disappointment, and I just didn't think there was anything. Anyway, I'm gonna load this up. That's way too much babble about like my memories and whatnot.